So, AI is everywhere, right? It's completely changing our world, driving all sorts of innovation. But let's be real, with all that power comes a ton of complexity and a whole lot of risk. For years, pretty much everyone has been flying blind, trying to figure this stuff out. Well, guess what? The map is finally here. Okay, let's dive into ISO 42011, the world's very first international standard for managing AI. And that really gets to the heart of the matter for any company out there. When you roll out a new AI, are you building something you can actually count on, a trusted partner? Or are you just rolling the dice, hoping for the best with some black box you can't even explain? That's the huge challenge that this brand new standard is here to tackle. But look, before we get into the solution, we've got to understand the problem. For a while now, it's basically been the Wild West for AI, a place with massive opportunities, sure, but also some really big, untamed risks. So let's break that down. What are we actually talking about here? Well, first up, you've got the whole black box issue. Systems that make these huge decisions, but we can't really explain how they got there. Then you've got the fact that these things are always learning, always changing. That means their behavior can just shift out of the blue. And that creates a total lack of transparency for the people using it. It makes it almost impossible to guarantee you're getting fair, consistent results. So how in the world do you tame that chaos? Simple. You write a rulebook. And that is exactly what the International Organization for Standardization did with ISO 42001. And here it is. This isn't just some document. This is basically a global agreement on how to do AI the right way. It's not just a bunch of pages. It's a huge deal, a landmark framework for building AI you can actually trust. And the best part? It's for anybody. Big companies, small startups, you name it. Okay, so at the core of this whole thing is this idea of an AI management system. The best way to think about it is like the central nervous system for all the AI stuff you're doing. It's basically a solid structure of rules and procedures that make sure you're handling AI responsibly from the moment you dream it up to the day you roll it out and long after. And here's the key takeaway. This isn't just about checking off boxes for some auditor. It's a strategic blueprint. It's a game plan for building trust. And I mean real trust. With your customers, with regulators, and maybe most importantly, inside your own company. Okay, so how do you actually build this system of trust? Let's think about it like you're building a fortress, something to protect your company and your customers. And any good fortress needs strong pillars, right? Well, ISO 42001 gives us the blueprint for 4 of them. All right, pillar number 1, the absolute foundation of our fortress, leadership and governance. Because let's face it, everything flows from the top. If you don't get this part right, the fanciest tech in the world is just going to fall apart. So what does that actually mean? Well, for starters, it means getting the top brass, the C-suite, to be genuinely on board. It means spelling out exactly who is responsible for what. No confusion. It means you need clear, written rules for how to use AI ethically and how to manage the risks. And, this is a big one, you got to make sure your AI strategy isn't just some tech project off in a corner. It needs to be tied directly to where the whole business is going. Okay, so we've got our foundation. Now for the next part of the fortress, risk management. This is all about hunting down and dealing with the hidden dangers before they become huge problems. We're talking about everything from privacy issues to biased algorithms. And this part, it's totally non-negotiable. And this has to be a real system, a process. You need to do a super thorough risk assessment for every single AI system you've got. Based on what you find, you come up with a real plan to deal with those risks. And look, this isn't a one-and-done deal. You need to keep a live document, an AI risk register, that you're always updating. Moving on to Pillar 3, data management. Look, we all know AI runs on data. So the quality and security of that data, that directly impacts how good and how safe your AI is. It's the classic garbage in, garbage out problem. So what do? You need solid policies just for the data that feeds your AI. You need ways to make absolutely sure your data is accurate and top-notch. You need to lock it down with strict access controls, and you got to have clear rules for how long you hang on to it, and just as important, how you get rid of it safely when you're done. Which brings us to our 4th and final pillar. And honestly, this might be the most important one of all, human oversight. Because the whole point of responsible AI isn't to get rid of human accountability. It's to make humans better at what they do. The human has to always be in the loop. This means you actually have to design your systems so that a person can step in at critical moments. When the AI makes a big call, someone, a real person or a team, has to be accountable for it. Every decision it makes gets logged so you can go back and check. And of course, your team needs to be trained on how to use this powerful tool the right way, ethically and legally. Okay, so you've got these 4 pillars, but building them isn't something you do just once. ISO 42001 is built on a really famous cycle of continuous improvement. It's called Plan, Do, Check, Act. This whole cycle is what makes sure your AI governance keeps up as the tech and the risks are constantly changing. So this whole system keeps turning, it keeps improving. First up is plan. This is where you set your goals for the AI system and map out exactly how you're going to spot and handle any potential risks. Then you do. Pretty simple, right? This is where you stop planning and start doing. You actually implement all those policies and controls and get your AI management system off the ground.
Next, and this is super important, you check. You take a step back and see how things are going. You monitor performance, measure if you're hitting your goals, and basically audit yourself to make sure you're sticking to the plan.
And finally, you act. You take everything you learned from the check phase and you make changes. You fix what's broken, you improve what's working, and then the whole cycle starts over. It makes your AI fortress a living, breathing thing that's always getting stronger. So, after all that, let's get to the bottom line. Why should you care? Why go through all this trouble? What's the real-world payoff for adopting a standard like this? And this really lays out the choice that every single organization is facing right now. On one hand, with the standard, you're actively building customer trust. You're making sure you're legally covered, and you're getting a serious competitive edge because you're seen as a leader. But without it, you're just exposed. You're risking your reputation, you're risking huge fines, and you're dealing with the massive dangers of using black box tech that you can't control or explain. The age of AI isn't coming anymore. It's here, right now. This standard is the blueprint to help you navigate it with confidence. So really, the only question left is, how are you going to build your future?